And we are live. Hello world, and welcome to the latest in my series of 5 tips to get a Pass A in your CELTA. This week's video includes tips on where to position yourself to effectively monitor your students, as well as eliciting. So stick around to the end so that you get those tips and more on how to get a Pass A in your CELTA. Before we get started though, and as usual, I'd be most appreciative if you would crush that like button, smash the share button, and raise the subscribe button to the ground. YouTube's algorithm seems to like it better that way. Before we jump right into the tips themselves though, one more thing is, I've been wondering recently, with so many of us moving from the classroom to the online virtual classrooms, how have you been finding this transition? Which tools are you using? Are you a Zoom teacher, a Google Meet teacher, or Microsoft Teams, or are you sticking with Skype? Or which tools are you using? Are you using any other like shared whiteboards or other collaborative tools to enhance the learning experience for learners online? I'd be really appreciative if you'd leave some comments, questions, thoughts, feelings. It'll be really great to get perspectives from different teachers all over the world. So the first tip today is the idea of doing more with less. So what do I mean by that, or how could you practice and improve that? One thing is, we often use images to clarify meaning of vocabulary, for example, or maybe to establish a context. A way that you could extend that idea to do more with less and establish your context more effectively and make it more student-centered is to try to practice to do it just with one image. So I'm just going to reach over here and get this book. So this book, it's called Living and Working in Canada. And we can see here there's a train and a mountain. So, you know, I could just ask my learners, maybe cover my hand here and say, okay, what can you see here, guys? It's not a bus. And you see, by me establishing it's not a bus, it's forcing their mind to set what mode of transport it is. And what can you see in the background? There's some mountains. Does it look warm or cold? Okay, yeah, it's cold. Which country do you think that's in? Try to, if none of them get it, it doesn't matter. They might say Russia or Alaska or something like that. I say, actually no, this one's in Canada. Then I can go straight in and ask, has anyone ever been to Canada? That could be my grammar point. Have you ever been? Present perfect for experience. And you see there, I've established a context, and I very quickly engaged the learners and elicited some target language. So try to do things like that with one image. It doesn't always have to be teacher fronted like I just did, like through me. You might hand out the image to the learners and get them to talk about it and then take some feedback. Either way, try to do more with less. This really shows resourcefulness and makes your teacher talking time and student talking time much more useful and effective. Before I go on with the next tip, if you're interested in tutoring with me or online tutoring sessions, please do contact me by email at fergustrainer@gmail.com for more information and scheduling. You can check out the details in the description below. So, on with the next tip. The next one is really about classroom position. Okay, think about what is the stage in your lesson and where can you most effectively be. So for example, let's say you're giving instructions. Well, you want to put yourself in what I like to refer to, and some tutors like to refer to also, as the lighthouse position. The lighthouse position basically means that you are in such a position that all of the students all around you can see you. Sometimes when we have this kind of horseshoe seating arrangement for our learners, sometimes we stand a little bit too far in front and the learners behind us can't see us. So just stay conscious of where you are, make sure that all the learners can see you. And then the other idea, I like to call it chesting. Get my book again, put your materials on your chest, and that way you have learners focused on you and you can point to whatever you're trying to elicit from them. Another position would be moving behind the learners. A great moment to move behind the learners is when they're doing controlled practice. The reason for that is if you're moving in front of them, they're a little bit more aware of your presence. But if you're behind them, they're still, of course, aware of your presence, but you're getting less in their attention area, I guess. And then you can just reach over their shoulder and say, are you sure about that answer? Is it the same as what's on the whiteboard up there? and it allows you to move quickly on. It's also very effective when you're doing a writing lesson, for example. Again, reach over their shoulder. Are you sure that's the correct preposition, etc. Sometimes it's a good idea to get down on your what's called a TEFL squat, sometimes to get on your hunkers. If learners are having pair conversations or maybe group conversations, if you get down a little bit, it'll let you tune in to what they're saying a little bit more. Sitting is also good for that. I like sitting for when I'm having like my Canada lead in there. Sit down because I want students talking. I don't want them focused on the board. I don't want them thinking this is a learning moment where they have to pick up on all of the grammar points or whatever. I want to have a conversation that establishes the context of my lesson, or maybe feedback to a free practice activity. I might also sit down so that I can have a more conversational approach with my learners. Another position is just don't move. A good moment when not to move is when you're doing a listening. If you're moving around and pacing and thinking that you should be monitoring while the learners are listening, you're probably going to end up distracting them. So just play the recording, stay as still as possible so that the learners can focus on the listening and not get distracted by your movement. The next tip I'd like to talk about today is providing accurate models of language. So if you go through your CELTA assessment criteria, this is one of the things that indeed you are assessed on. And this basically means things like be aware of Pidgin English. And what I mean by Pidgin English is when we like de-grammar the language. So me hungry because not food, for example. And it's a natural tendency of native speakers to do that in whatever language they're speaking in, because it just focuses on content words, and it's kind of like a feeling that we have that it's going to make things more easy for the non-native speaker to understand us. However, when we think about it, as a teacher, the things that you say is really educational input for your learners. So you have to make sure that you're not selling them the wrong idea. Okay, so even if you think, oh, the grammar is too difficult there, change the way that you say things. You'll see in a previous video of mine, I talked about grading your language. So just grade your language a little bit more, but don't go into the Pidgin English. Sometimes teachers have a tendency to echo learners' errors as well. I've seen that before. Sometimes we don't really fully think about the student's answer or what the students have said, and then we feel that, oh, I don't know how to correct them effectively, so I'll just go with what they say so that I don't get caught on the spot. Even if you don't know the grammar explanation or the linguistic explanation to their error, be aware of what they are saying and be aware of what you're saying, and don't let it become an inaccurate model of language. The next really big tip is learning to elicit. You'll see your tutors doing this on your course. Experienced teachers do it all the time. And it's really going to be one of the most important tools in your toolbox of teaching tools. So really what we mean by eliciting is, instead of giving information, ask questions. So if it's about language, you could ask, is this positive? Is it negative? Or in the image, instead of saying, look, there's a train and some mountains, it's like, what can you see? What's going on in this image? Talk to your partner. Why do you think that? And the last thing is to say, sometimes we talk about, I'm not knowledgeable enough on language, but we also need to develop our language awareness as well. So you need to be able to ask yourself very quickly, what is the part of speech? You know, is it a verb, noun, adjective, adverb? As you get more experience, you'll be able to think about even more parts of speech, like conjunctions and dependent prepositions, etc. But, you know, focus on the, as I call them sometimes, the big four, so the nouns, verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. Make sure that you're able to identify those, and then you can elicit that from your learners because you have this developed language awareness. You can put a word up on the board quickly. Oh, look, it ends with ly. What type of word is that? Again, instead of telling them, look, this is an adverb, you can say, hey, look at this word. It finishes with ly. We've seen words like that before. What type of word is it? You could also think about things like, again, going back to the positive, negative, you know, what's the connotation? That's always a really great concept checking question. You know, does it have a positive or negative connotation? Be careful, like everything, of course, that doesn't work for every single word. Think about table, for example. Does that have a positive or negative connotation? Well, it has neither. So it wouldn't be a useful question. But where language does have connotation, it's a really good one to ask. And really, at the end of the day, going back to what I said, even if you don't have the actual linguistic or grammatical knowledge to provide academic answers to students' questions, just listen to your inner voice. And what do I mean by your inner voice? You know, if a student says, yesterday I have been to the cinema, the grammatical construction there is correct, but it just doesn't taste right. It has a flavor that it's of that production. It's wrong. And even though the learner might be sticking to the grammatical form that you've just taught them, it's still important for you to let them know, yeah, but no, that's just not what we say. We would say, yesterday I went to the cinema, or I was at the cinema yesterday. So what am I saying there? If you don't have the knowledge, but your inner English-speaking voice is telling you there's something wrong there, listen to it. Because again, that goes back to my other point on providing accurate models of language. Don't find yourself locked in by grammatical structure and therefore all sentences must follow that. Of course, there's exceptions to everything. Okay, so there you have it. That's it for this week's top 5 tips on how to get a pass A in your CELTA. So please let me know in the comments if you have any questions related to teaching or the course itself. Also, it'd be great to hear about your experiences implementing these ideas. So please do go ahead, like the video if you found it helpful. Share it with someone if you think someone else would get something from it. And hit that subscribe button to get more content like this. I really and truly appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. So take care, everyone, and see you in the next video. Thank you very much.